The following story was written as part of a fully online writing class designed and taught by author Meagan J. Meehan. The stories from this class were subsequently printed in an anthology series titled Wicked Writing Volume 1, courtesy of Stitched Smile Publications. To join the next class, email Meagan J. Meehan directly at artsycr8tivent@gmail.com. To purchase a copy of the book, visit its Amazon page, linked in the description below. And to learn more about Stitched Smile Publications, visit their official website at www.stitchedsmilepublications.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Meagan and her authors, and enjoy the story. So there we were, playing Highway to Hell for what seemed to be the 10,000th time. The song was playing on repeat, with the occasional Hell's Bells and Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, all performed by AC/DC, my favorite band. The playlist was on for a special occasion though, for we were literally going to hell. Hell is a small town in the Great Lakes state of Michigan. My brother Wesley and I were on our way there, so we can say that we've been to hell and back. We were also heading over there to get a t-shirt for Wesley, which was a major reason we were making the trip in the first place. I had just gotten out of my last year of high school and was working for a local pizzeria for extra money. That all was displayed by my shirt that read, in bold, "Gimme a pizza that pie," with the name Joe's Pizza arching over the saying. I didn't like my job, but I figured nobody does, and muscled through my days of rolling dough and baking pizzas. Besides, it was better than being at home, I figured. But I became sick of pizza. Just the smell of it made me ill. Occasionally, I would bake myself a free one, which Joe allowed, and take it home for my family to eat. My family wasn't great on money at the moment, so anytime I could bring home free food made for a great day. One Friday, while I was getting off my shift to enjoy the weekend, I fixed myself a pizza for the road. I drove home in my old silver minivan with a Joe's Pizza box sitting in the passenger seat. Rock tunes booming out of the car's speakers, I pulled into my family's driveway, slammed the car door behind me, and approached the house with slight unease. I could hear my parents arguing inside. It was never fun to be stuck in the middle of their fights. I felt like a referee in a cage match, sometimes even becoming part of them and actively taking sides, and at other times, needing to break them up. Their fights were always petty, too. "You were supposed to take out the trash," she'd say. "It was your turn to pick up Wesley from school," he'd say. They'd argue, throwing insults at each other, and then Mom would slam the door to what was supposed to be their bedroom, while Dad would head to the old, familiar confines of the couch. Who knew why they were fighting this time? I intended to race past that mess and go to my brother's room, who was probably looking forward to my return. I opened the door and ran up the stairs, slipping past the argument ensuing in the kitchen. Walking past the bedroom, I made it to my brother's door, which was covered in horror movie monster stickers. I knocked on it, gently, and slowly opened the door, emerging into Wesley's bedroom. Wesley was my small, chubby brother, who at the moment was playing video games, but I could tell he wasn't fully into it. "Hey buddy, how's it going?" I said, trying to sound caring, though my parents could still be heard yelling at one another downstairs. He paused his video game and turned to me, but just looked down at the ground. I shut the door behind me, successfully muffling our parents' fight. I started this one," Wesley said. No, you didn't, buddy. Mom and Dad are just going through some things. It'll get better.
No, I started it this time.
Why do you think that?
Because I asked Dad if he'd take me somewhere, and he said no, which got to Mom yelling at him, and he started yelling back, and...
He trailed off, wiping his eyes with his sleeve to clear them from the tears falling down his cheeks. Where'd you want to go? He sniffed a few times.
Well, you know the small town called Hell? I thought it'd be cool if we all went there, like that one time we did when we were younger.
He was remembering a happier time. A time where we took a family trip to Hell, Michigan, just to say that our family could survive a trip to Hell and back. But it didn't go well. Wesley begged Mom for a t-shirt, and she said no. Ever since then, he'd wanted to go back and get one, specifically the one that says, "See you in Hell" in bold, with Michigan in small text just underneath it. I frowned. I understood where my younger brother was coming from. You know what? We'll go to Hell. Just you and me. It'll be fun. And we'll get you that shirt you've always wanted. He quickly got up off the ground and slammed into me, clasping his arms around me for an embracive bear hug. I set the pizza box on the bed and held him tightly.
Thank you, Sydney,
he said, his voice muffled by my shirt, which was covered in flour. So we packed our things up, got in the car, and hit the road. We drove for quite a while. Eventually, we turned onto M53 while jamming out to Hell's Bells. It was known as the Highway to Hell, for it was the last road you hop onto before you reach Hell, Michigan. I was banging my curly fro side to side, while my little brother had banged off beat in the passenger seat. He wasn't much of a rocker like me, but my music was perfect for this occasion. Honestly, I was paying little attention to the road in front of me, but then something caught my eye. Something weird was up ahead. "What is that?" I said, staring at what seemed to be a red fog off in the distance.
I don't know. Maybe it's a flare,
my little brother said, while paying absolutely no mind to what I was seeing, switching the song back over to Highway to Hell. I guess it could be a flare, but what if it's a fire? I kept driving, and when we got closer, it wasn't any easier to figure out where the fog was coming from. I don't know about this. Maybe we should just turn around.
No! We're almost there, Sydney. Just drive through it,
Wesley said, looking up at me with a face you just couldn't say no to. Fine, but if I sense any danger, I'm turning this car around. He nodded, and we perused toward the fog. When we reached it, it was dense. It was hard to see through, and I could just make out the road in front of us. My biggest fear at the moment was that I was driving on the wrong side of the road, and that an oncoming car might hit me if I wasn't careful. I started to drive under the original speed limit, just to make sure I didn't get hit by any cars that could possibly be coming up from up ahead that couldn't see us. I also turned on my fog lights, since visibility was low, but they didn't seem to make much of a difference. Then, something changed. I didn't notice it at first, but it became clearer the deeper we went into the fog. The road was unusually bumpy, like we were driving on a brick road or something. I squinted a little, and when I could just barely see in front of me, I realized that the road did indeed change. We were now driving on a path that was cracked a little bit, with a bright red light piercing through the ground. Okay, I really don't like this, I said nervously. Wesley just turned the volume up, but suddenly the music stopped in the middle of the song, looping the word hell repeatedly like a broken record. Wesley struggled to turn off the radio as it pierced our ears. I winced at the increased volume and yelled for him to turn it off. He just hit random buttons and twisted dials until it finally stopped, which took him switching from Bluetooth to FM radio. Relief hit us both as the volume ceased. I looked over to see the station playing now. 66.6 FM was the station it ended up landing on. Weird, I thought. I didn't even know such a station existed. A slight shiver went down my back at the thought of the sign of the devil, 3 6s. Even though I wasn't a firm believer in the afterlife, it still made me a little uncomfortable to be on this station. Hey, are there any other stations other than this one? I asked. He hit the seek arrow, and it flipped through a bunch of numbers, but landed back on the same station. Nope, Wesley said nervously, looking over at me with a concerned look. Is the volume down? I asked, wondering if the station was just naturally silent or if the volume was just low. I tried turning the volume down before, he said, testing the dial to see if it was turned all the way down, and it looks like it's on mute. Turn it up. He slowly turned up the volume, and I instantly regretted asking him to do so. Screams screeched through the car's speakers and nearly deafened my brother and I almost let go of the wheel to shield my ears from the violence being put upon them. Turn it off, Wes! I yelled. Wesley reached for the dial and spun it to mute the screams, but to no avail. They sounded horrific and blood-curdling. I can't turn it off, Wesley yelled, as he stopped attempting to silence them and instead just covered his ears, the only defense he had against the banshee noise. It was then that the red fog lifted, and what we saw was, well, hellish. The sky was dark red. Before, it was a little gloomy outside, and you could just make out the sun in the sky above. But now, there was no sun in sight. Just an all-red sky with a few black clouds. The road up ahead turned into a red-bricked path, the car bobbing up and down as it lumbered across the cramped road. But that was only the tip of the iceberg in the changes we perceived as we continued to look around. Large spikes speared into the red sky, and as my eyes followed the spike to its peak, I noticed something was on the tip. I squinted to see, and could just barely make out what it was. It was a man. A naked man that was impaled on a giant spike. And it wasn't just one. There were people impaled on all the spikes, as far as the eye could see. Wesley whimpered in the passenger seat. I don't like this, Sydney, Wesley said, sinking into his seat. Close your eyes, Wesley, I demanded, and he quickly followed the command, covering his eyes with his palms. I checked the rearview mirror, but all I saw was the red-bricked road. No red fog that we had driven through before. I looked forward to make sure I wasn't going to hit anything, then looked back again. And that's when I noticed something was starting to emerge a good distance behind us. It peeked over the horizon. Whatever it was getting closer and fast. I kept my eyes on the road, but was constantly looking out the rearview mirror, trying to ignore the scenery around me. My ears adjusted to the screams through the radio. It was getting to the point where it was just background noise. As we kept driving forward, hoping to reach our destination, if that was even still feasible at this point, the thing behind us came into view. What is that? I asked in an alarmed tone. It appeared to be a skeleton with black wings. In its hands was a scythe, Its wings flapped vigorously as it approached, closer and closer. Wesley was now turned around in his seat, peering out the back of the van to see what I was petrifyingly captivated by. Fuck speed limits, I thought. At this point, I knew it was time to floor it. I slammed my foot onto the pedal, and the car shook as it switched gears. The van wasn't used to going over 70 miles an hour. "Hurry, Sydney, it's gaining on us!" Wesley yelled, aware of the danger I sensed as well. I'm trying! The thing was just behind us now, no more than 20 feet away. I cursed rapidly, releasing the panic I was holding within. 15 feet. 10 feet. 5. The car began to halt. I turned to the rearview mirror and watched as the skeleton held its ground behind us, its scythe piercing the top of the trunk and getting stuck there. I'd have to find a way to explain that to my mom if we made it out of here alive. If this thing didn't kill us, she would. I contorted my body so that I could properly see out the back window and slammed on the gas. The skeleton behind us got into a pushing motion. We were in a tug-of-war. We were going in reverse, and he was pushing us forward. The car's tires released smoke as the wheels turned in place, but slowly we were backing up. The skeleton switched positions, shouldering the weight of the van. Then it collapsed underneath the vehicle as the van overcame the skeleton's strength and reversed 2 tons of minivan on top of him. I hit the brakes. Wesley and I were breathing heavily as the lights of the minivan shone onto the skeleton. "Is it dead?" Wesley asked. Just as I was about to reply, the skeleton twitched, got onto its knees, and then began to prop itself back up. "Run him over! Run him over!" Wesley yelled. I hesitated at first, but then I threw the van into drive and slammed on the gas again. The skeleton pushed against the hood of the car, pushing us backwards a bit. I could tell it was using all of its strength to stop us from moving forward. "Run him over!" Wesley yelled again. "I'm trying!" I yelled back. Smoke appeared once again as the skeleton pushed against us. This time, though, the skeleton was winning. I cursed, but then I began to think on my toes. I threw the car into reverse. The skeleton fell forward onto its knees and then stood up, preparing for the next move I had planned on doing. It probably thought I was gonna ram it again. Fuck that, I thought. I slammed on the gas, making my way toward the skeleton. And then, right before making contact with it, I veered. I veered like I would if a deer had run into the road. I floored it, and we made our way past the skeleton, or at least I thought we did. I took in a deep breath as we drove forward onto the brick path. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. That's how much adrenaline was flowing through me at the moment. Then I heard footsteps coming from the roof. It was on top of the van. The skeleton was on top of the van. I hesitated again as my brain lagged in the dire situation. Then I desperately whipped the wheel back and forth, hoping to get the thing to tumble off the side. It was fruitless. I heard the scythe being expunged out of the top of the trunk. Shit, I thought as I looked over at Wesley, who was definitely in tears at this point. "It's gonna be alright, Wes, we got this," I said, giving him an unconvincing smile as thuds on the roof could be heard. They stopped right above my head. I threw the cart aside again and again, but it remained firmly on top. There was only one thing left to try. Suddenly, the windshield was impaled by the scythe, which missed my face by mere centimeters. It retracted, and I could feel another swing coming soon. And that's when I made my move. I slammed on the brakes, causing the car to skid and rumble to a halt. The skeleton went flying forward and tumbled to the ground. I hit the gas as quick as I could and ran over it again. This time I looked into the rearview mirror to make sure he was left in the dust. The skeleton stood up and stared at us, wings starting to flutter. And just then, the car started to sputter, and then it stopped. No! No, 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 no! I yelled.
What's happening? Where are we going?
Wesley asked. Oh my god, I can't believe this right now. We're out of fucking gas. That's when a loud thud landed on top of the roof. The skeleton was back. It walked onto the hood of the van, turned and knelt down, and peered into the van's windshield. It looked at both of us, and then a deep, disembodied voice burst through the car's speakers.
You don't belong here,
the voice said, as the skeleton pointed a bony finger right at me. No, we don't! I screamed in agreement. The skeleton looked back and forth at us. Then it turned and hopped off the hood. It walked a couple steps forward, then lifted a hand in the air. The red fog returned, covering the area around it with its eeriness.
go.
The disembodied voice said. We sat silently, not knowing whether or not to trust the skeleton. And we really couldn't move anyway since the car had no gas left in it.
Leave.
It yelled, and quickly, on instinct alone, I hit the gas pedal, which moved the van forward into the fog. I looked over at the gauge, which still read empty. Somehow we journeyed into the fog for a few minutes, until it turned into a pinkish color, then white, until it finally lifted and a normal paved road came into view. Just ahead of us was a sign that read, simply, "Welcome to Hell." Our van sputtered, then finally came to another halt as smoke began to emerge from the hood.
What the hell was that?
Wesley asked, breaking the silence between us. I think hell is precisely what that was, I said. Letting out a nervous laugh, we both hopped out of the car, grabbed a gas can from the trunk, and together we walked into hell, where a restaurant and souvenir shop were calling our names. A huge, huge thank you to all of my poltergeists. Bobby Tripp, Calderin, Cheryl Meredith, Gary, Imugi, Joker Smurf 3, Nathan Konark, and Spirit Father. As always, your support is so appreciated, and thank you from the very bottom of my heart.